Hi, we're talking about Your Money Matters on NDTV Profit because we understand that your money matters. Do you have an emergency fund or a contingency fund as some people call it? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to listen to this conversation. This fund is like a seat belt. You don't need it till you need it, and then you're glad that you had it. What am I talking about? And how much do you need to set aside? Should you do this before you start saving for your long-term goals? Also, should you use a credit card to tide over a crisis situation? We're going to discuss all of this and more on this episode. Joining me is Santosh Joseph, the founder of Germinate Investor Services. Santosh, thanks as always for taking the time. Let me start by asking, out of all of the people that you speak to, how many of them buy into this idea of an emergency fund, or do you have to convince them about it?
Hi, Alex. Good afternoon. Good to be back. There are a few people who are yet to come to terms with having an emergency corpus fund, though it may seem like an important decision that someone begins with. But it is also to do with some people didn't know that they needed to set aside money for emergency because the traditional thought process is to have a fat savings bank account balance and not put a tag to it. But the minute someone like us goes into the room and tells them that it's nice to have a 6 months odd emergency saving corpus, many people immediately buy into the idea. And for most people, it's the 101 of beginning a journey of financial prudence. So therefore, some people need to be told, some people are ready with it, but the tag differs. But the people who are not aware of it, they are very eager and happy to start on this journey. And essentially, it is the first step towards getting yourself, covered from financial prudence.
Okay, so you mentioned a 6-month amount, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But what kind of emergencies are you talking about? And here, I would like you to, and we're not trying to frighten anybody, we're trying to lay out possible scenarios so that they can guard against any eventualities that are not desirable. So what kind of scenarios are we talking about? We're talking about situations where you could lose your job or a health crisis, something like that, right?
You're right. So here when we talk about an emergency corpus fund, we're essentially trying to solve for a financial emergency. Now, why does a financial emergency arise? It's one, a cutoff of income, or two, an unforeseen expense. Now, why is the cutoff of income happening? Primarily because maybe you lost your job completely out of the blue, or maybe you're not able to work. Could be an illness, could be an accident, or even could be a layoff that was unprecedented. Second, why do you need an emergency corpus fund? Assuming you're holding your job, assuming your income is intact, but suddenly you were hit with some financial expense which is outside your month-on-month planned expenditure. So it could come from two sources. One is cutoff of income or excess of expenses. In both the cases, it puts a stress on you if you do not have that approximate 6 months of savings, so that these kind of minor turbulences are mitigated.
Okay, so when you say 6 months of savings, what are you talking about? So 6 months of expenses, right, is generally what you cover. And so what do you include in those expenses? Do you include everything from your rent to your EMI to everything that you buy?
Okay, there are two ways to look at it. Either 6 months of essential expenses, or it could also be 6 months of your salary. Now, we are hoping that usually people save about 10% or 15% of their monthly salary. That turns out to be 80% either way. But it is a total expense list. Assuming that today you have to live your life normally, but you're not getting a salary, from rent to groceries to utilities to paying essentials to eating out to everything. And the more gross you make it and the more robust you make it, you're in a better shape. So therefore, 6 months of every essential expense that you need for the month would constitute the month into 6 months.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? A lot of people that I spoke to in the run-up to this conversation, Santosh, a lot of young people have said, we don't have that kind of money. It's not possible for us to put that amount of money aside. So just as an example, even if somebody is earning 50,000 rupees to start with, and it's such a good thing that the finance minister has ensured that these individuals will now not pay any tax. So that's a positive thing, and they'll be able to save more of their income. But even in that situation, you're talking about a situation where people are paying, what, 35,000 rupees on an average in expenses and everything that they have to spend on, right? So they have 15,000 rupees, but what do you do with that? You have various other things, other commitments, and so you're not really saving a lot. Even at your 10%, you're talking about 5,000 rupees per month. How are you going to do 35 into 6?
Alex, I'm glad you brought that up. It looks easy to save that 6 months corpus, but in practical application becomes a little more complicated. So there is a simple way. If you're only doing 5 or 10,000 in the example that you gave, it will take a couple of years before you hit that minimum threshold of 6 months. On the other hand, we prioritize this goal of having 6 months of savings. Basically get done with it. Try and see as early as possible that you contribute, you accumulate, you spend less. Ensure your 6 months of saving basket or kitty is done. Because once you do that, after you're done, now you know you got an emergency kitty, you got a salary, and hopefully the salary is growing as you grow in your career. You will be a lot more comfortable to spend. Now, remember, when you're doing this, the biggest thing that's going to come against you is all the choices of consumerism and all the 101 expenses that will lure you into. So, therefore, it needs a little bit of extra discipline to just ensure that the threshold of the 6 months is done with. Believe me, it gives a lot of people a lot of peace and a good night's rest just by having that 6 months of safety net for you.
Okay, so would you say that if it's impossible at the start to have 6 months, that 3 months is enough? So because it's more practical, that's the only reason I'm asking, because the argument really is, can you tide over 3 months without really having access to income? Or, the reason I'm asking this is that a lot of young people will say, if push comes to shove, I can go back to my parents, I can go back to my family, I can go back to my folks. So there's not as much pressure as you might have later on in life, Santosh. And so what I'm saying
not everybody's got the luxury.
Have a practical solution to this.
No. So you're right, Alex. Not everybody's got the luxury of going back to parents or going back to friends to support them. We also have to acknowledge that today we're living in such interconnected world that many people are not even living in their own hometowns, and really they need this corpus. Now, if you can't do 6 months, even if you can do 3 months, you're way better than not having anything. What are we essentially trying to solve for here? We're trying to make you financially stable and financially confident and financially stress-free. So therefore, if you think 6 months is going to be difficult and really humongous for you, you at least begin with a 3 month corpus because it's less stressful also to gather that money. Yes, some people who are having access to family or support back home can lean back on them. There's no harm in a push comes to a shove scenario. Now, I think you earlier spoke about it. Some people, kind of circumvent this by either having some kind of a backup plan. And in these cases, some people even fall back on a credit card if they do have one. You also have to take into account that if you're starting your career new and if you're new into your job, it does take you time to even build your credit score and have a credit card or even access to any form of credit. Could be a loan also, because today personal loans are disbursed in few seconds and minutes. So I think there are one or two options to get by if you're really in a crunch situation. But I think still the base condition is if you can save up, if not 6, at least 3.
Okay, so would you say that this is more important than any other saving? You start with this because a lot of people start with SIPs. They start with equity SIPs that to it. It's not what you might suggest, putting money straight into your bank account. And you've said that, right? You should keep the emergency fund in your bank account. You're not investing it. So what would you say about those people? So they're essentially saving. A lot of them don't have an idea as to what they need it for, but they start investing because we're talking about SIPs every day. They've heard, oh, we must save every month. So they've started a 5,000, 10,000 rupee SIP where possible, or even something less than that. But they're not setting aside towards this emergency fund. Are you saying that this comes first before that as well?
I'm glad you asked that question, and I'm glad you asked it in the format. The present challenge that we have with the SIPs that are happening now is they're eager to save and they want to make their money grow. They're ignoring the base effect of setting aside an emergency corpus. Now, when you directly jump into the deep end of the pool, that is saying, I'll save for long, I'll save in equities, when a first emergency strikes, you're withdrawing funds from equity or hybrid or some other long-term oriented asset. Number two, you'll have to stop your SIP because you cannot fund the SIP. And three, this is what happens sometimes you're withdrawing at a loss, and it also creates a negative impact about investing in general. Therefore, if you were to reverse it and first go with emergency corpus, once your emergency corpus is done, then look at aligning your savings to long-term goals, SIPs into equity funds or hybrid funds or any fund that chooses your risk appetite. That's when your SIPs won't stop, you won't cease, you won't withdraw money. You're making SIPs for the real alignment of your goals. You're letting SIPs continue for long and also letting the assets work for you to generate a compounded return.
Okay, so let's just drive home that point, or continue down that path, right? Because you're saying initially when you're saving every month, you push money into what should ideally be a different account, right? Because you shouldn't have access to the emergency fund on an ongoing basis because you don't want to spend from it. It's for exactly that, it's for a rainy day. But you're saying as you progress and you set up a decent amount of money, you should maybe diversify into other low risk investments, maybe a liquid fund or short-term debt fund. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely right. See, like, bank account, all of us do have bank accounts. That's where our monies are parked right now. You have an FD, which will actually have a different number and will have a different categorization. So today people make an FD because they're scared of UPI, they're scared of somebody taking off their debit card or a banking theft or something. How an FD and a savings bank account are though maybe in the same place but have a clear demarcation. Likewise, your investment account and your savings kitty, especially the emergency corpus, should be kept with a clear compartmentalization away. Savings are supposed to be highly liquid, not connected to the market, and easy to access. On the other hand, investments are supposed to be maybe a little illiquid, maybe for a long term, maybe more towards growth orientation. It could be even a little volatile. You see, there are clear differentiation. That's when you'll have a better experience both on savings and on investments. The day you merge the both, that's when people tend to have not so great experiences.
Okay. The last question, and you mentioned this, you can use a credit card to tide over in an emergency, but should that be your last resort? Or in a situation where you have ample funds available, should it be something that is a factor of convenience? You don't have to go and liquidate something immediately, so you swipe your card, but you don't roll it over. Is that good advice?
Well, the credit card is the last of the last resort.
Okay.
Ideally, it's never, but then if you do have the access to have a credit card, now I've said it in the past that a credit card is actually a personal loan where they've given you the discretion to use it when you need it, hoping that you will be responsible with it. So it does help. It does help sometimes when you don't want to disturb some of your cash flows that is coming in. Credit cards can be helpful. There are many people who have been very prudent, very disciplined and make credit cards work. And there are some people who have gone to even earn points and miles. I'm not getting there, but credit cards do work. But for the people who do not think you can have a control and discipline over it, that's the last resort. And when you do that, there's no question of rollover. As soon as you spend, or maybe as soon as the bill comes, you pay 100%, close it out, clear those balances, keep it clean and clear so that from savings didn't get into debt. I mean, that's a different problem altogether. While trying to take care of your emergency corpus, the overuse or abuse of credit card can lead you to completely uncharted territory of getting into extremely high cost debt.
Okay, a quick last question, and we're running out of time, so this will have to be a quick answer as well, Santosh. If you have been saving for yourself, and if you now are living with a partner, of course, your expenses don't double necessarily. They go up by a certain amount. Do you merge the two and create a common emergency fund, one? And two, if you are not earning a regular paycheck, and if you are essentially you're a gig worker or you are a freelancer, do you have a larger amount of money that you have to set aside as a contingency?
Yes. So if you're a gig or a freelance worker, the tendency to have a larger safety and emergency net is because the periodicity or the frequency for you as a freelancer is very different from a salaried person. So therefore, I think that 6 months could be stretched to 9 months or even 12 months. And almost every freelancer that I work with agrees that the more the better as far as they're concerned, because at least the salaried guys knows when his salary is going to come or his bonus XYZ is going to come. For a gig worker, he's a little uncertain, so a larger corpus is better. Now coming to living with a partner, yes, expenses do increase, but there's also rationalization because of two people. Now, there are two ways to solve this. One, both of you together agree what is the minimum corpus that for both of you to be taken care of you need. On the other side, the simpler way that many households have adopted is one person saves and one person spends. That way, you always have one person's income set aside in a very liquid or a bank account so that it's easy to access, and the other person takes care of all expenses. So saving, expenses, and emergency corpus all happens simultaneously.
Yeah, and you better then ensure that you are towing the line, because then when you want to spend on something, they should agree with what you want to spend on. Santosh, thanks so much for joining in, for answering all the questions that I had.
Thanks, Alex.
And hope this is a way for people to get started if they haven't yet. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, now the second part of this conversation is what I like to call Tech Tuesday. Like the name suggests, this is consumer tech that we usually speak about, things that you go and spend money on, whether one product is better than the other, whether one is worth the money that you're spending or you could spend. But today, I'd like to talk about gifting options. It's that time of the year when you generally like to buy something for that special someone. So we thought, why don't we talk about tech that you can gift to your partner? To talk about this, I'm joined by Dhruv Bhutani, who's a tech expert. Dhruv, thanks so much for joining me and for speaking about this. I asked you to come up with a list, and it's an interesting one that you've come up with. And we try to keep it gender neutral, but mostly I've found that the guys get the tech, and well, the guys have a lot of pressure trying to find out what to buy their partners as well. But what would you say is the most exciting tech gift that you could give that's not necessarily too expensive?
I think everybody appreciates a good pair of earphones, and AirPods has the brand cachet going for it as well. So unless your boyfriend or girlfriend is an absolute audiophile, I think a safe bet would be to pick up the AirPods. The AirPods 4, you can get them for around 13,000 rupees. So it's suitably premium, but not. It's not going to, you won't have to break the bank to get one of these.
Okay, so but why AirPods 4 as opposed to any other pair of earphones? Because if I'm not mistaken, you can get a pair of Bose, for example, or several other pairs of earphones that are in that similar price band?
Correct. But some of those earphones don't have all the same feature set. So things like spatial audio, especially if you're on an Apple, in the Apple ecosystem with the iPhone, the iPad, or even a Mac, if you consume a lot of media, so that spatial awareness features built into these AirPods are pretty convenient to have. And like I said, sure, there's a lot of alternatives available on the market, but you just don't want to go wrong with a gift, right?
Yeah.
So you go for an Apple product, and that's always appreciated.
Yeah. Okay, and it helps that it looks and feels great. Let's talk about what somebody who's conscious about their fitness might like. And I saw the list, and this drew my attention immediately. It's the Ultra Human Ring. As I understand it, it's the Indian equivalent of a product that is gaining traction internationally. Is that right?
Correct. It's from an Indian startup, and it's the alternative to the Aura Ring. And I've been using it for the last year, and it's not necessarily meant for an athlete. It's not going to replace a Garmin, but the insights that I've gotten from it have been pretty good, especially around sleep. In fact, I would say that the sleep tracking on the Ultra Human has been superior to even the Apple Watch Ultra. And it's really helped me optimize my sleep better. And of course, it's going to do your standard step tracking, of course, and all of those features are there. So if your partner is not necessarily an athlete but just wants to take steps towards improving their overall fitness levels or activity levels, this is a good middle ground, because not everybody wants to wear a smartwatch, not everybody wants to charge a smartwatch every day, and this will get you about a week of battery life. All of those factors come into play, and it looks quite nice too. So for around 29,000 rupees, I think it's a safe bet.
29,000. Are there alternatives though? Because I can't remember the name of the company, but there are a couple of options available, some cheaper than this.
Indeed. So the Indian brand again, Noise, they have a product which looks similar, but when it comes down to activity tracking, I am a little suspicious about algorithms and the tweaking that the brands are doing for accuracy. And I mean, at the end of the day, accuracy is the most important factor here. So sure, you can get something which is going to do step tracking for a lot lesser, but I can't really vouch for the accuracy of those products.
And so you've used the product for a year, you've been satisfied, and I'm pretty sure that you also have access to the other trackers, right? So are you satisfied with the tracking that it does?
Indeed. So I've tried the Aura Ring, but the problem there is that that comes with a subscription cost as well, which does add up quite a bit. And I use an Apple Watch Ultra and a Garmin for my activity tracking, which is like when I'm actually running a marathon or working out at the gym. But when you're going to bed, you don't want to wear a bulky smartwatch. Plus, you have to charge those as well.
Yeah.
So the Ultra Human is what I wear, especially when I'm going to sleep.
Okay, we've got three more to run through. I don't know what this is, I must confess. Remarkable 2, what's that?
That's a very interesting product. Especially, I think it's useful for everybody, but especially if you've got an artistic bent of mind, the Remarkable Pro is a very good solution. It's an e-ink tablet, but it's basically meant for taking notes. You can doodle on it, sketch on it. You can also read ebooks on it, even though that's not the primary use case for it. And it comes with a stylus, so it's going to do handwriting recognition, and all of your digital notes get stored to, say, an online cloud service, and you can access them from anywhere. It's a good middle ground between a physical notebook and an iPad. Now, an iPad is going to give you a lot more functionality, but sometimes you don't want all of those distractions. You want a product which is fine-tuned for a very specific purpose. That's where the Remarkable 2 comes in.
And how much does it cost?
It's around 45,000 rupees.
Ooh, so it's not a cheap gift to give your partner. So make sure that you have budgeted.
It is a long-lasting gift, though.
It is long-lasting, and you can't put a price on love. You can't put a price on love. Intax Wide Neo. What's this?
The Instax. Now, okay, like it's Valentine's Day. I'm sure you want to capture some good. I'm sure you want to capture some good memories together, and I mean it's an Instagram favorite of sorts. It's basically a Polaroid camera for 11,000 rupees. The Wide Neo, it's got pretty good picture quality as well. Some of these don't, so the Instax stands out because of that. And the Wide Neo also lets you switch between a standard lens and a wide lens, well, a wide frame of view. So you have a little more flexibility on that front. And you actually get printed out photographs right there and then.
Okay, so but what do you need to? So once you bought this, you also need to buy certain other paraphernalia, right? So you're talking about cartridges.
Indeed.
Are you talking about cartridges?
Yes. So you get cartridges of about 8 to 9 photographs, and it's about 700 odd rupees for a pack.
Easily
so
available.
Easily available on Amazon and even offline for that matter.
Okay, and how much would this set you? So 11,000 bucks is what it is.
11,000.
Okay, and there's one more on your list. You've selected the iPhone 16 Pro, and a lot of Android users will be like, "Hey, man, what about us?"
Yeah. Well, you did say you can't put a price on love, right? And when you're gifting your boyfriend or girlfriend, or even your partner for that matter, you want to go for something premium, and you really cannot go wrong with an iPhone. Even though I use an Android device, I would still call the iPhone the safe bet. And the iPhone 16 Pro is absolutely a safe bet if you want to gift someone a new smartphone.
So, but if we're talking about pricing here, and we haven't yet seen the iPhone 17, but as I understand it, and the buzz around the tech world seems to be that the design elements are going to be dramatically different. Wouldn't you want to wait for something like that?
I mean, when it comes to tech, you're always waiting for the next best thing. When the iPhone 17 comes out, I mean, there's already rumors about the iPhone 18. So at some point, you need to draw a line. And Valentine's Day is not going to come in September or October. It's now. So if you want to buy an iPhone or a new smartphone as a gift, this is the this is your option.
Okay, let me
And
push
it's a great
you.
option.
Let me push you then for an alternative to the iPhone 16 for those people that know that their partner is used to the Android ecosystem. What would you buy as the, in your opinion, I think the next best thing?
Honestly, I would say that if you do not want to spend a lakh plus on a smartphone, the brand new OnePlus 13, that's an excellent value for money smartphone. Very good cameras, has top of the line specs, huge battery. I mean, you can get 2 days of use out of it, and that phone is priced around 74,000 approximately. And I would say that's a very good balance between getting a premium product as a gift and again, not going for an iPhone.
Absolutely. All right. So, Dhruv, we've given people a lot of options. I'm pretty sure that they will thank you if they get the right reaction, and I don't see why they shouldn't. Thanks so much for joining me on this conversation.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Alex.
All right, that brings us to the end of this edition of Your Money Matters. Thanks so much for watching. Do stay tuned. Lots more coming up on NDTV Profit.